What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Real Bodybuilding Podcast. This is my review of the 2025 Olympia, and I want to go through each guy one by one and kind of give you the pros and cons like I did before the show, and kind of give you guys a full review rundown. I got to go to the show. I had decent tickets both nights. I got to kind of see everything up close and personal and really kind of assess what I thought of the show. Now, before I start with the athletes, I want to give the Olympia a shout out for following suit and listening to the fans and giving them the black backdrop. They found a way to do it that was still very kind of cool and innovative and very kind of big show like. So it was interesting to see the way they put it together, but still gave the athletes and the sponsors the time they deserve on stage with the best look they could possibly provide for the fans. So I kind of want to give myself a pat on the back and Detroit, myself, Paul, and Ben for promoting the show and going with the black backdrop and bringing that back to this era of bodybuilding. I think we were the first show to do it in this era, and shows are starting to follow suit, and that's because you guys, the fans, are making it loud and clear that that's what you want to see, because it makes the athletes look as good as they can possibly look. And that's what we want to see. We want to see them highlighted in a way that gives us the best chance of seeing who they really are and what they really look like. So congratulations to the Olympia for that and finding a way to do it that still gives it the big show appearance. Moving on to the athletes, some pros and cons. I just want to list some really awesome things that happened. Derek getting his title back. Big, huge win for him. Losing your title and then getting back is obviously not easy. It's only been done a couple times in the Olympia history. So that's number one. Number two, Andrew, bringing that kind of condition, something no one ever thought he would do. It's been a few years and people have been waiting for it. Big, big win for Andrew. Another big win I could find was not really, there were some small wins after that I'm going to mention, but not really any big ones. Some big losses. Obviously, Samson going from first to fourth, huge loss. Usually when a Mr. Olympia loses the title, it's by one spot. When Jay lost or when Ronnie lost, these things, they usually end up in second. But Samson slipped. So big loss of the show. The second big loss of the show was Nick. I think so. A lot of people had Nick in first, and he ended up in sixth. So another big loss to the show. So some pros and cons I noticed right off the bat. But let's go through each athlete one by one. First, Derek Lunsford. So Derek, congratulations to him. He competed earlier in the year, the Arnold, the Pittsburgh, and now this is a third show going in. And still able to bring a good package. Is it Derek's best package? No. But it depends how you define best package. So sometimes an athlete can get sharper, but it may be a detriment to the overall look. And that's what I think Derek and the team was calculating. They were trying to decide, if we bring him in absolutely peeled, is it going to take away from his overall balance? Meaning when Derek loses too much and he gets too crisp and he gets too striated, sometimes the legs lose a little bit of mass. So he played the game of, let's come in a little softer, not necessarily as crisp as the Arnold, but massive legs. So Derek was 100% balanced top to bottom. He was probably the biggest guy on stage out of the top four, maybe out of the whole show. And I think it really showed, especially with a downsized Samson. Andrew didn't really lose too much size, even though he was big. But sticking to Derek, they played a game where they were like, we're going to come in big, but still sharp enough, still with really good condition, and we're going to play this game. And it worked for them. They were because Hadi, we'll get to him in a minute, was extremely sharp, but Derek was bigger and also sharp. So they could, like I said, they could have been sharper, but it didn't matter because they wanted that balance, that size that was going to make them look better than everybody else on stage. So that was really important. to note. And I think it was very well played on their part. And they walk that line really carefully of we don't want to be too soft. We don't want to be just big, but we also don't want to be so sharp that we're losing our legs. And they walked that line really, really well. And they were rewarded for it. That's why he's Mr. Olympia. So that was Derek. Moving on to Hadi. Hadi looked like he was the Hadi of old as far as condition goes. Crazy condition, especially from the front. Good condition from the back. From the back, hamstrings usually lag a little bit behind, so it takes away from the overall look. If you look at Hadi from the back, you get a very big, dense, thick back with a lot of depth and not crazy hamstrings, and it takes away from that overall back shot. When you put him next to Derek, Derek's got that crazy back, strided glutes, and then the hamstrings don't get stripped out, but they're still really thick. So it's a very balanced look. With Hadi, it's very top heavy. It's very like huge lats and kind of small hamstrings. So from the back, there's that problem. From the front, perfect. Strided, up top to bottom, every body part, crazy. Legs, that right leg is showing a little bit of a size difference. It always has, but maybe it's a little bit more pronounced when he's totally shredded. That I thought was another knock on him. And I think those are the things that helped Derek win. Derek being more balanced from the back, Derek having a little bit more balance from the front, bigger legs, kind of took over that first place spot and took it away from Hadi. Even though he was sharper from the front, it didn't really matter when he was missing like a body part from the back and maybe wasn't as big overall. So I really felt like that was a good call on their part. Incredible. Hadi looked incredible, but it just wasn't enough to overtake Derek at this time. And then you had Andrew Jack. Andrew blew away everybody. Nobody expected that kind of condition with that kind of fullness and size. You know, we always look at guys that size and we think, okay, if they're going to be conditioned, then they're going to get stringy. They're not going to be as big. And Andrew was just as big as he always is, but absolutely peeled, strided glutes. He looked amazing. And a lot of people had him in second. Some people had him in first. He was extremely impressive. I think where Andrew is kind of losing some shots from the side, he's very weak. It's not that he's weak as far as his physique goes, but he's not good at displaying his physique from the side. From the side chest is a very weak shot for him. And then when you go to the side tricep, he's not really hitting a side tricep. He kind of turns his body to the front and does that thing where you kind of like you're showing your chest, abs, and leg, which is not really hitting the pose properly. And I think it's taking away from his comparison with the other guys. So side shots, he's losing. I think back shots, he's good, but not great. I think from the front, he's killing everybody. And I think that's why Andrew was third place. He still has a couple things to balance out. He has to match that back to the front, which is close now. And he really has to master those side shots. And once that happens, I think Derek needs to look out because Andrew is right there. That frame is really, really hard to ignore. Like he's 6'1" or 2" or whatever he is, and just big as fuck. Like it's really imposing. Like I said, match the back to the front, correct the side poses. You might have another Mr. Olympia right there. Moving on to Samson. Samson dug out what they wanted, push the condition, and he ended up too small. And I think he traded, 10% more condition, 20% more condition for a loss of 50%. I don't want to say he lost 50% muscle, but you guys understand what I'm saying. He gained a little bit of condition and lost a lot of mass in the process. So he was a little sharper, Samson, than we'd ever seen. But it wasn't really as noticeable because he was so much smaller. So what we want to see from Samson is the same thing we saw from Andrew, which is we want to see you at 300 pounds, Samson, but in the same condition as Andrew. And I don't know if that's possible. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. It might take a little less travel, might take a little more staying home and really hammering out a little bit more muscle tissue so that when you peel down, you don't lose any size. But I think that's the thing that everybody wants to see is they want to see Samson at the same size that we always see him, but in the condition that he brought to this show. And I think if that happens, nobody on stage can touch him. But until that happens, he's going to have some problems because I'm not sure if 24 Olympia Samson would beat 25 Olympia Derek. That's a interesting comparison because 25 Olympia Derek is not as sharp as he was at the Arnold. So if that Derek competes against 24 Olympia Samson, I don't know how that shakes out. So Samson's got some homework to do. He's going to have to figure out how to get as peeled as he got at this show while still retaining more of his muscle, which is going to be tricky for him. But he's still going to be in that top 4 in years to come. It's just going to depend on where he lands. Moving on to Martin. Best condition of the show, I would say. Him and Hadi maybe tied for best condition of the show. I don't think anybody had better condition than they displayed. Martin was completely stripped out, didn't lose any size, still had his trademark roundness, but was very, very hard, especially from the back. And tiny waist. Maybe the smallest shoulder to waist ratio of the show. And very, very impressive conditioning and overall balance. And I think the reason he was 5th, not 4th, 3rd, 2nd, or 1st is size. I think when Martin gets a little bit more muscularity, he builds a little bit more mass on that physique. Yes, we can pick apart some certain body parts. You know, the lats need to compare to the mid-back. The mid-back is probably still very pronounced compared to the lats. The biceps probably need more peak. The hamstrings probably got to have to catch up to the quads. There are a lot of little areas you could nitpick, but overall, Martin is completely balanced and peeled. All he needs to push himself into that top 4 is more muscle. 5 pounds more tissue on that frame would look crazy. 10 pounds could put him in champion circle easily. So I don't think Martin is far off. I think if he keeps bringing that condition while adding, 2 pounds, 3 pounds, 5 pounds a year, it's not going to be long before we see Martin in the contender circle with a Derek, with a Hadi, with a Samson. Martin is right there. He's knocking on the doorstep. He just got to put on a little bit more muscle. But at 27 years old, he's still young and got a long way to go. Behind Martin was Nick. Nick in that first call out kind of stuck out like a sore thumb. Whatever they did to put on the 10 pounds of muscle, sorry, I shouldn't say muscle. They told me they put on 10 pounds from Pittsburgh. Whatever they did to put on that 10 pounds did not go to the areas they wanted it to go. When you put on 10 pounds and you have certain body parts that are behind others, you want that 10 pounds to go to your legs, to your shoulders, to your triceps, areas that are going to accentuate your X frame. You do not want that 10 pounds to go to your waist, which is what it looked like happened. And on Friday night, especially, it was all waist is all I could see. And all everybody I was sitting with is kind of what we could see is the top 6 call out was vacuums across the board until you got to Nick, and it stuck out. Now, they made some errors in peaks at the peak week, like they said, and they're going to have to switch those up for next show. They did correct them a little bit for Saturday, and they came back better. Waist was a little tighter, but still not good enough to push him ahead of 5th spot, 4th spot, and left him in 6th place. I think the judges are sending a signal that, hey, we don't want you to be bigger. We want better shape. And I think a lot of people are in agreement that the best Nick is Nick of 2021, 2020, I think 2022 Arnold, I want to say, 2021 New York. I believe those are the years I'm thinking of. That smaller version of Nick, which is not small, still probably the most muscular guy on stage. That smaller version of Nick with a little bit tighter waist, onion thin skin, that's the Nick everybody's waiting for and wants to see. And I don't think he displayed that at the show, but it's not a big deal. I saw him. He was in pretty good spirits on Saturday night. And they know they made a couple errors that they are going to fix. And I expect Nick to be back in the winner's circle at some show this year before we know it. So I don't think it's going to be a problem for him to correct, and I wouldn't count Nick out at future shows. Behind Nick was a surprise of the show for me, which was Brandon Curry. I thought Brandon's legs looked incredible. Brandon is 43 years old, and I did not think he could bring those legs back. I actually had Brandon ahead of Nick in the call-outs and a final placing, but I don't think the judges saw it for whatever reason. I thought Brandon looked incredible, so balanced. The legs came back to such an extent that he was so balanced. He just looked, I would have had him, fuck, man. If it was up to me, I could have had Brandon in fourth. Brandon, just the balance of his physique looked incredible. The roundness of the muscle bellies was there. He did not look like 43-year-old Brandon. He looked like 38-year-old Brandon. I was so impressed. And I really, really think he got overlooked. It's too bad because Brandon's a great dude, but I feel like he deserved to be pushed ahead of where he was. He is a former Mr. Olympia, and I thought he deserved a better look. But they believed he was 7th place, so that's where he landed. Maybe he wasn't big enough for them. Maybe he wasn't tight enough for them. I don't know what they were waiting for. But I thought Brandon brought everything he needed to bring to be pushed into that top call out. He did not get the first call out, which I thought he deserved. So kudos to Brandon anyways for really bringing back his legs and showing awesome balance and a great physique that I really thought should have been pushed ahead. After Brandon was Tonio, another guy that a lot of people made a case for being pushed up a little bit higher. I don't know where I would have had him. He was still Tonio, as shredded as he was, as incredible as he looked, as phenomenal as all the muscle bellies were and everything kind of pieced together so perfectly. He's still a little bit narrow through the clavicles and still a little small. I don't think he's big enough yet to be pushed ahead of Nick, for example, in this show. If it was up to me, I would have had Nick in 7th spot, and then Tonio, I think, is fair placing at 8th place, only because of size. He just needs a little bit more structurally. He's a little bit smaller guy. So I think he needs more muscle tissue to really kind of push himself up into the higher placings, or else he's always going to be 8th place. He's never going to get into that top 6, 7th spot without being a little bit bigger. It doesn't mean a ton. 5 pounds more tissue on Tonio's frame could be crazy. After Tonio was William Bonac. William Bonac was in great shape. It was great to see him at the show. He was in good spirits backstage. I thought his conditioning was incredible. I thought legs looked good. Torso, chest, back, all looked awesome. I thought the arms were a little bit downsized. And I think for William right now at the age he's at, those limbs have to be full size for him to be balanced. And I think the arms being a little bit smaller or downsized compared to earlier in the season, I think played a part in his torso looking a little bit bigger than he maybe wanted it to, which probably took away from the balance of his physique and pushed him down into the 9th spot and allowed Tonio to get ahead of him. You got to remember, Brandon did Detroit. He did Dubai. I think he did like 4 shows this year. I don't remember all of the shows he did, but I believe he did like 4 shows. So, it's been a long season for Brandon. I think no matter whether you're tired mentally or not, I think your body is going to start to slow down after so many shows. And I think it showed a little bit. Body looked a little bit tired. And with that, I mean, the fullness just wasn't there in all the body parts. It took away from his overall balance and allowed Tonio to get ahead. After William was Vitalii, which is Good Vito. Good Vito, incredible condition. Incredible quads, incredible lower body. Even back looked pretty good. Still too small in the shoulders and arms and chest for somebody with legs that big, and I think that's playing a part. But more importantly than those body parts being an issue, his posing. I think Good Vito posed himself into 10th spot. I think if he could pose better, Good Vito could have been all the way up to 7th, 6th. He just can't pose, and it's hurting. Instead of taking a physique that needs some body parts, that needs some shoulders, some arms, maybe a little bit of chest, instead of taking your weak points and posing in a way that hides them, I think Vito poses in a way that actually shows you the bad body parts more and shows you the imbalance more. And I think he's got to learn to either build his physique to a point where there are no imbalances, or learn to pose in a way that accentuates your strong points and hides your weaknesses. And I think that's going to take a little bit of time for him to learn. It's the easiest win for him. Like the easiest thing if you think about it, putting on more tissue could take years, depending on how much you need. Learning to pose could take a month. If you worked on it every day with somebody that knew what they were doing, in a month, you could be a better poser. So just stop ignoring it because it's glaring and everybody can see it. Stop ignoring this one thing and fix it. And I think the same thing would go for Andrew. Like if I was 3rd place in the world and people were like, hey, you could be 2nd. And it's a dramatic difference in money. Okay, so it does matter whether you're 3rd or 2nd. If somebody said, hey, you could be 2nd or even 1st, if you just changed these 2 fucking poses or these 3 poses, that's a 5-minute fix. Okay. That's hey, I put my arm like this instead of this, and all of a sudden I look 10 times better. Okay. That's an easy fix. So it's irritating to me when I see guys at that level that are that good, that are hurting themselves and losing placings because of bad posing. So, Vito, again, incredible physique, a few imbalances. Posing is the main issue. Beirus was everybody's dark horse. Beirus was heralded as high as 4th place by some people until we saw him on stage. When we saw him on stage, we saw 2 things. We saw condition wasn't there, which is not good for Beirus because we're used to seeing a Beirus that's dry, hard, crisp, and we saw smooth. And on top of smooth, we saw imbalance. So we saw legs weren't up to par, and I think it hurt him pretty badly. I think he's got a great upper body, great chest, great front relaxed, great midsection, very, very put together very well, great arms. From the back, he's also very good, but the lower body's just not matching up size-wise. I think that plays a big part. Also, the separation in the legs is not there, especially on Friday when he was a little bit off. But even on Saturday when he's sharp, the separation in the quads is not extremely deep, and I think that takes away from the overall look of the legs. So I think Beirus has some work to do on that lower body to really change things up, and I think when he does, then he's going to be a danger to that top 6, top 8, to work himself into that category. But until that happens, he's going to remain outside the top 10. Judges want to see that balance. And someone like William Bonac with crazy legs, or someone like Tonio, crazy legs, or Brandon Curry even this year brought crazy legs. You're not going to jump ahead of them if your legs are small. So they want to see that change, right? Especially he's behind Good Vito as well. Another guy, crazy legs. So until you correct that imbalance, is going to be a problem. So Beirus, great upper body, awesome back, awesome shoulders, arms, chest. All of it looks great. Bring up the legs, and you're going to be moving on up. After that was Jordan Hutchson. Seth was sitting next to me. Jordan had one of Seth's favorite physiques of the night. I thought he looked really good. He brought a very complete package, very conditioned, which was nice. Tan was really good. Physique looked pretty balanced. Body parts were all pretty proportionate except for the arms. In my opinion, Jordan just needs more arms, a little bit more back. Those 2 things can come. If they come up, he's going to be very dangerous. I think if Jordan can bring up the arms and back, he's an easy top 6, probably top 8, no lower than 8th though, because that physique is very, very nice. Big legs, great chest, and again, brings very, very good condition. Great hamstrings too. Just need a little bit more back and a little bit more arms. And the arms, and the other reason is he's got a little bit bigger waist than some of the other guys. If you can bring that down, that's great. It's probably easier to bring the waist down a little bit than to bring the arms up. But if you can do both together, then you have a top 8 guy for sure. Urs Kalachinsky was after Jordan Hutchson in 13th place. Urs was a fan favorite. Came out, front shots, incredible. Beautiful condition, amazing legs, chest looked great. Arms, shoulders still need more time. Back still needs a little bit more time. Hamstrings are awesome. Glutes are good. Came in very good shape. Overall structure is very big, but muscularity is not quite there yet. So he was behind Jordan, Vito, some of the other guys that carry a little bit more mass, but amazing shape, amazing condition, some very, very good body parts from the front. Needs to match it in some other areas, side, back, but really, really good to look at. Really fun athlete on stage. Regan, 14th place. The most important thing I can say about Regan is tan. For some reason, Regan cannot get the tan right. This happens at shows after show after show, and sometimes he gets it right and sometimes he doesn't. This is the easiest thing to get right of the entire show. More than putting on muscle, more than getting shredded, more than posing, more than fucking getting the right trunks, more than everything. Tanning is the easiest thing to do. You walk into a booth, they fucking spray you, and you walk out. I don't know why your tan would be off. Even if you showered and washed it off, you can go back and get another tan. They will spray you again. Kind of no reason for... I'm sorry I'm being hard on Regan. I really do like him, but there's no reason for somebody at the Olympia level to not get this thing right. It is paramount that you're able to walk into a fucking booth and get sprayed. It's not that hard. It's not difficult. It takes no work on your part. Get your tan right. Okay, that's first. Second, condition. Regan, again, could not bring that really trademark condition that we want to see from him. There are other guys that bring this really shredded shape, shredded muscularity, hard as nails, and it's trademark for them. It's not for Regan. We want to see more from him because he has so much potential. He's got a big, imposing structure, lots of muscle, and we want to see better condition from him and better, like the tan. Like I said, that's a simple thing, but tons of muscle. But with those two things had him kind of falling back into some of the further spots out. Rubiel, I'm sorry. I think I said Nick was the biggest guy in the show. I'm not sure if I did. Rubiel was the most muscular guy in the show. I saw Ronnie Coleman compete once, so I've seen somebody with that much muscle, I guess. But recently, in this era especially, I don't think there's anybody with as much muscle as Rubiel. This guy... his legs have so much muscle. Maybe Rami. That's what it reminds me of. Rami probably has as much muscle as Rubiel. This guy's legs are so big, you can't see any separation. There's no cuts in the legs because there's so much mass blurring everything. I don't think it's a condition thing. I think this guy's got too much muscle, and it's like squeezed the striations to the point where there's nothing left. And I don't know how conditioned he can get. I think that's the main issue because it's not muscularity. I'm telling you, he's obviously a little imbalanced from the lower body to upper body. That could be an issue as well, but it's not fucking muscularity. This guy's chest, shoulders, legs, he's got so much muscle everywhere. It's insane. And the only reason he's in 15th place is condition. I thought his posing was okay. Tan was good. Muscularity is like off the fucking wall. Obviously, balance is a little bit impaired because his back doesn't match his legs, so that could be an issue as well. But I think it's mainly condition. They want more condition. They want more separation. They want more detail in those muscle groups. There's so much muscle there. They want to see the separation in those muscle groups, or it's not going to matter how much mass he has. Now, outside the top 15, we had Sasan, Shen Cheng Long, Dorian Haywood, Akeem Williams, and Brett Wilkin. They all look very good. Maybe size issue. Akeem even looked a little bit downsized compared to what he normally looks like. But I personally think size was a main issue for some of these guys. Shen Cheng Long, the main issue there was size from the front compared to the back. He was very, I don't want to say very good, but he was pretty good from the front, but did not match the back. And I think that was the main issue. Sasan was size, Dorian Haywood, legs, Akeem overall size, and Brett overall size. They all looked very good, but just size kept him out of the top 15. And I'm sure they'll make those corrections for the shows coming forth because Akeem especially, I know, can be a lot bigger. Brett can be a lot bigger. And Sasan and the rest can change their physiques with just a little bit more work to get where they need to be. But congratulations to them. You know, those guys all, except for Akeem, I think it's all of their first time at the Olympia. So congratulations to all of them anyways for making it to the Olympia and being named as some of the best in the world. This is the best in the world. So even if you're out of the top 15, the other 5 guys are still considered amongst the best in the world, just not in the top 15. So that's my breakdown of the Olympia. Overall, awesome show to watch. It went pretty fast. I thought all the callouts were pretty fair. They mixed up the callouts between first and second callouts, so everybody got to stand next to everybody else. The only thing I think they got wrong was Brandon. And I'm sorry to Nick, but he was a little off. It wasn't the normal Nick that we're used to seeing. And Brandon, I think this might have been the best Brandon we'd seen in the last 2 or 3 years at least. And I think he deserved at least to be 6th, maybe 5th. I don't know. I think Martin might have been too good and too shredded, but I at least had him in 6th place behind Martin. So other than that, I think the show got called pretty well. My personal feelings, aside from my objective critique of the show, I know a lot of you want to ask me, but probably about Samson because me and Samson are so close. Like I said, I saw pictures and videos of Samson 3, 4, 5 weeks out. I think he was right where he needed to be. I think that guest posing, I know people saw that he was a little smaller, but I think he was on track to be the best Samson that we needed. I'm going to say a couple things, and I hope Samson doesn't get mad at me for them, but Samson wanted to bring, when you're told repeatedly that you're not shredded enough, you're not shredded enough, you're not shredded enough, and fans are like, you're not shredded enough, you're not shredded enough, and you hear it from everywhere. You hear it from media, you hear it from judges, you hear it from fans, you hear it from everywhere. Even when you're the champion, you still want to be better, and I believe Samson wanted to be better, and he dug it out. He dug it out and kept going and kept going and kept going and kept going. And he thought, and even I remember talking to him at 3 weeks out or 4 weeks out. I can't remember what video. I think 3 weeks out was the last video I saw. And I remember talking to him and he thought, and his legs were grainy, but the upper body maybe wasn't as grainy. And he's like, if I just keep going, I can get the other upper body as grainy as the legs. And he probably could. And he did. The problem is you have to learn where to pull back for your own physique. And this is what I mean about Derek. Derek could have kept going and being as shredded as the Arnold, but that might have hurt him because Hadi might have beat him at that point. They made a calculated decision to not be as crisp, but be bigger and more balanced because they knew Hadi was going to bring the condition, Samson was going to bring the condition, and they're like, you know what? We're just going to be bigger than everybody. We're still going to be in a good condition, but maybe not our absolute best because we're going to be bigger and more balanced. And that's what happened. And sometimes being the most shredded is not necessarily the answer. Sometimes you have to be the most shredded for your physique. And I think in Samson's case, had he stopped at the 3-week mark where I saw him and maybe started reversing back to eating back up into the show, I think we might have seen the best Samson we've ever seen in our lives, because that's what I saw at 3 weeks out. Now, what's done is done. And at 3 weeks out, he said, I'm going to dig deeper, and I'm going to go even harder, and I'm going to show them the most shredded physique they've ever seen. That maybe was a bridge too far, but they've made that correct. They're going to make that correction for next show, just like Nick is going to make the correction for next show as well. Going to bring a leaner package, a smaller waist. Just, everybody, just like Andrew is going to learn to pose better on the side shots. All these guys are so close. These top 4 guys, and, I might even throw Nick and Martin into the mix soon enough. Martin will be big enough soon enough. These guys at the top, they're all interchangeable, especially the top 4. You could throw Nick into that if he can get his shape right. These 4 guys, though, at the very top are interchangeable at any point, at any moment. And I feel like a slip in the wrong direction could cost anybody 2, 3, 4 placings. So, Samson dug it out, went for broke. It wasn't the right look for him, and I'm sure they're going to correct it for next time. But most importantly, what I'll say is congratulations to Derek. He is a true champion. He is very polished. He doesn't fuck around. This is a real competitor. First show of the year, the Arnold, he brought the package he needed to bring. Second show, he brought the package he needed to bring. Arguably his toughest matchup. Arguably, a lot of people had him losing that show, but he pushed through and won. And now the Olympia, and he finds a way to win. Sometimes winners just find a way to win. Like, he knew Samson was going to be big at the Arnold, so he came in more crisp. He knew he was going to be competing against Nick at the Pittsburgh, so he brought in a small enough, shredded enough package because he knew he couldn't be bigger. Then they knew Samson was coming in to dig it in to be as shredded as he could be, and maybe he was a little smaller. So, like, you know what? We're going to play the opposite game and be bigger. Maybe these things are an accident. Maybe they're calculated. I don't know, but it feels like it's calculated. And on that part, I have to give Derek my hats off, because it's really important to look at your opponents and see what they're doing and bring your best in comparison. Just a couple other side notes before I go. Congratulations to Ramon. I thought Ramon deserved to win. I thought the smaller version of Mike, I had him actually in 3rd place behind Terrence, but I thought the smaller version of Mike definitely wasn't the winner. So Ramon, congratulations. Mike, 2nd place, I think deserved. I had him in 3rd, but I think he kind of deserved. I wouldn't say the judges were wrong. It's just my own personal preference. I really like Terrence's physique. Terrence, best posing routine of the entire night. So congratulations to you on that. The presentation was absolutely incredible. And then finally, I want to congratulate Niall, One Punch Naz. I interviewed him just before the Olympia, and he was hoping for a top 10, and he ended up in the top 5. So congratulations to Niall. Really nice to see you excel up into that top 5. That's a big deal, especially in a year that's so competitive. Okay, guys, that's my Olympia wrap up, my Olympia review. Hope you guys liked it. Try to be as objective as possible. And until the next time, we'll catch you guys on the podcast. Thank you for watching.